Hi, when does normal sadness become depression? This is a common question asked to any psychiatrist. What do we take into consideration when we diagnose a person as having depression? Is it the severity of the mood and severity of other symptoms? Is it the frequency of the symptoms, the duration, or the resulting dysfunction? Let us explore. Welcome to Mindscape Matters, a channel to discuss mental health and more. And I am Dr. Mohan Raj. I am a consultant psychiatrist based in Chennai, and I'll be your guide as we explore this wonderful landscape together. There is no thin dividing line between normal sadness and depression. There is a continuum on which they lie. We have a stage when there is no sadness, then mild depression, moderate depression, and then severe depression. And we take everything we discussed earlier, that is the severity of each symptom, the frequency, the duration, and the dysfunction into consideration. Let us explore each one of them. When we take the primary symptom, depressed mood, there are people who have no sadness. Then there are times when they have some amount of sadness which are fleeting, like they are sad for a short while, then they are okay. Then there is a stage where the sadness is pervasive. It's there most of the time, but it could be mild, moderate, or severe, but it's coming and going. There are people who will have sadness, severe sadness, pervading at all time. Whatever they do, there is sadness. So there is a continuum in terms of the severity of the mood, the depth of the suffering, the depth of the mood they have, and the frequency of the mood. So based on that, we will finally look at what would be mild, moderate, severe. While we are discussing mood, there is another dimension of mood called reactivity of mood. That is, how does the mood react to environmental stimuli? Now, a person who has mild depression, when friends come and try to cheer him up, he will become better, his mood will lift, he'll forget about depression, he'll be able to laugh, talk to them. Here we say the reactivity of mood is good or high. A person with moderate depression might also get cheered up, but to a lesser degree, and here his reactivity of mood is moderate. And a person with severe depression, no matter what the friends do, talk to him or take him to a beach, take him to an amusement park, the mood will remain flat. So we call it as the reactivity of mood is low or nil. There is another dimension of mood called range of emotion. So when you say range of emotion, all of us go through the entire range of emotion in a single day. Whereas a person who has depression, the range becomes restricted. In mild depression, there is some amount of restriction, but in moderate and severe, the range of mood is limited to the depressive spectrum only. When we consider the level of interest, a person with no sadness has no problem. They can take interest in whatever activity they do. When somebody has mild depression, they have some difficulty in taking interest. They need to push themselves, but they will be able to do most of the things fairly well, whatever their activity, daily activities are, their work requirement, or their leisure time activities. When it becomes moderate, they need to really push themselves, or sometimes they give up. They know that they need to exercise, but they just postpone it by a day. So gradually their interest levels come down, and at some point they'll stop doing whatever was giving them a lot of pleasure earlier. When it becomes severe, the interest level becomes so low that some of them report difficulty even getting out of the bed. I'm not talking about sleeping longer. Many of us can lie down and sleep for 1 more hour. We're not talking about that. They wake up but then have no interest to get out of the bed for 1, 2, or even 4 hours. They just lie down and have a lot of depressive thoughts and no interest to get out, because the thought is, what am I going to do? What am I going to achieve today? Nothing. So let me just sit as long as possible. And finally, when they cannot postpone is the time they will get up, brush with great difficulty, That is lot of effort needed to brush, lot of effort needed to bathe and get ready for the day. That's the level of interest in severe depression. When we consider the ability to enjoy, a person without sadness or with normal sadness will be able to enjoy things like, let it be songs, let it be presence of friends, let it be a scenery. Whereas as the depression progresses from mild, moderate, severe, the ability to enjoy will be lesser. Whereas mild depression, they'll be able to still enjoy things, still enjoy music. In fact, it will help them to come out of depression for at least a brief while. Same with moderate, whereas with severe, sometimes the ability to enjoy would completely come down. A song which they have enjoyed every time they hear it will sound very flat to them, or a scenery which they have always enjoyed will not appeal to them anymore. When it comes to depressive ideas, a person who has no sadness or normal sadness is unlikely to have any depressive ideas. Whereas a person with mild depression is also unlikely to have any of these depressive ideas. And even if they have these ideas, they are fairly infrequent, occurs only occasionally, and they doubt whether am I worthy or not, but they also know that they are worthy. Whereas in moderate depression, these ideas of helplessness and worthlessness become a little more frequent. And in severe depression, ideas of helplessness and worthlessness are there most of the time, and there is no doubt anymore. The person firmly believes that he is helpless and he is worthless. Once they have these thoughts, the next thought is ideas of hopelessness. Ideas of hopelessness is not seen in mild depression also. It could start in moderate depression, but mostly seen in people who have severe depression. When there is ideas of hopelessness, what happens next? The person thinks there is no hope in anything. I've tried everything. Death is the only answer. So when suicidal ideas start coming, we consider it as severe depression. It could be fleeting, it could be all the time, but we consider both as symptoms of severe depression. There is one another symptom, guilt. Guilt again can be in a continuum from fleeting, mild guilt, doubtful guilt to guilt which is there all the time and there is no doubt in the person's mind that he is a big sinner. So this again is in the continuum of mild, moderate, severe depression. Sleep can tell us about the severity of the mood. In mild depression, there is difficulty falling asleep. They go to bed, but the onset of sleep is delayed as they keep worrying about things. In severe depression, there is difficulty staying asleep. They would have slept, but they would get up at 3 or 4 a.m. And after that, they find it very difficult to go back to sleep again. And the depression is also worst at that time. There is this concept called diurnal variation of mood. What it means is, within severe depression, there can be a fluctuation in the mood. That is, the depression is at its severest point when they get up in the morning at 3 or 4 a.m. and gradually the mood becomes better and better. And by evening 4 to 6, they would feel a lot better. But after they sleep and get up, the same cycle repeats again. This is called diurnal variation of mood. And this is again seen only in severe depression, not in mild or moderate. Coming to the next symptom, appetite. Appetite again may not be much disturbed in mild depression, moderate, whereas in moderate to severe depression, the appetite is disturbed so much so that there can be significant drop in food intake, and as we discussed in the last episode, there can be severe weight loss. Occupational and social dysfunction can also be markers in determining what state of depression they are in. A person with mild depression would start becoming a little calmer, withdrawn, whereas a person with moderate to severe depression can become very withdrawn, non-communicative to their people. Work efficiency again can be worsening as they become moderate to severe depression. They might lose interest in everything and their dysfunction becomes much more. But I need to also tell you there are exceptions. Sometimes people with severe depression can continue to talk well, continue to do their work very well without any dysfunction. And we have seen people with mild depression exhibiting a whole lot of dysfunction. That we need to keep in mind. There is one stage which is considered severe than severe depression. That is severe depression with psychotic symptoms. What I mean as psychotic symptoms are delusions and hallucinations, which we have not discussed in this series so far. Delusion is a false fixed belief. We'll discuss about delusion a lot more later, but at this point of time, delusion is a false fixed belief. And a person with severe depression might have a delusion, a false belief that their inner organs are all rotten and not functioning. And a hallucination is a perception without any stimuli. That is, they could hear a voice when nobody is actually saying anything, or they could see something when nothing is there. So a person with severe depression might have an auditory hallucination, a voice telling them that they are an evil person and they are fit to die. So this is called severe depression with psychotic symptoms. In summary, we looked at the various symptoms, how they are different in the continuum from normal sadness, mild, moderate and severe depression. For research, there are rigid criteria which is followed. Whereas in a clinical setting, we don't follow rigid criteria like in a cookbook. Whereas we take all these into consideration before we diagnose somebody as having mild, moderate or severe depression or depression with psychotic symptoms. Thank you for staying this long. Thank you for staying this far. If you like this video, please tell 4 of your friends. Tell them there is a Tamil version also. Stay tuned because Mindscape matters. Bye.